I'm Sarah. Teaching vocal lessons is what gets me up in the morning. At 42, I've seen my share of bright-eyed kids dreaming of the big stage. But it was Emma who brought a twist to my tale. At 14, with a voice that needed work but had potential, it was her dad, Jack, though, who flipped my world. "Miss Sarah, my dad's here to pick me up," Emma announced one day, her voice cutting through my thoughts like a sharp knife. I glanced up, expecting the usual parent, but there stood Jack, not what I expected. Tall, with a look of someone who's seen stuff but kept standing. "Hi, I'm Jack." Emma's been going on about her lessons. "You must be Sarah." His voice was straightforward. No frills. I liked that. "Yeah, that's me." "Emma's got talent, just needs a bit more push," I said, offering my hand. His handshake was firm, honest. "I appreciate you helping her out. I'm clueless about this stuff. Her mom was the singer." I caught the past tense. "I'm sorry," I said, the standard response. But his nod told me he'd heard it a million times. "No worries. We're managing, aren't we, Em?" His look towards Emma was full of that silent communication only parents and kids have. Emma rolled her eyes, the universal kid signal for parents, right? But she smiled. "Yeah, we're good." The conversation should have ended there, but Jack lingered. I'm trying to get her more into music, keep her busy. Her brother, too, Alex. Kids, a ball of energy, I laughed. Music's a great outlet, keeps them focused on something positive. Exactly, Jack agreed. Hey, you ever do group lessons or something for a hyper 13-year-old who thinks he's the next big thing? I shrugged. "I can handle 13-year-olds. Bring him by. We'll see if music or noise is his thing." Jack chuckled, and that sound did funny things to my stomach. "Deal. I'll bring him next time." "Thanks, Sarah," as they left. I shook my head, dismissing the fluttery feeling. Jack was just a dad, a widower trying to raise his kids right, nothing more. But life, as I found out, loves throwing curveballs. Jack started showing up more, sometimes with Alex. Sometimes alone, under the pretext of discussing Emma's progress. We'd chat, and those chats started veering off music, more often than not. One day, as autumn painted the world in hues of gold and crimson, Jack turned to me, a half smile on his face. "Sarah, would you consider going out with me?" "Like a date?" I blinked, surprised. "A date." "Yeah," he said, his voice firmer than his casual stance suggested. "I like talking to you, the kids like you, and I think I want to see where this could go." It was unexpected, this shift from casual chats to the possibility of something more. But looking into Jack's earnest eyes, I felt a pull, an interest I hadn't felt in a long time. "Okay, Jack, let's see where this goes," I found myself saying, a smile breaking through my usual reserve. Merging into Jack's world was like stepping onto a stage without a rehearsal. Emma was easy, music was our language. Alex, though, was a different beat, skeptical of the new woman in his dad's life, protective of his sister and the memory of his mom. And then there was Mary, Jack's mom, a matriarch with warmth and sharpness all rolled into one. The day Jack introduced me to Alex, the kid sized me up like I was a new recruit. "So you're the music teacher," Alex said, crossing his arms, his eyes narrowed. "That's me, and you must be the next big thing in music from what I've heard," I shot back, trying to break the ice with a smile. He cracked a grin, the skepticism in his eyes softening a bit. "Maybe. Guess we'll see if you're any good." "Challenge accepted," I said. And from there, things started to ease into a rhythm. Alex had energy for days and a curious mind. He didn't take to music like Emma, but he respected the passion behind it. Meeting Mary was another story. She had a reputation for being tough as nails with a heart of gold, hidden somewhere beneath. Walking into her house for the first time, I was greeted with a scrutinizing gaze that could make a seasoned performer sweat. "You're Sarah. Heard a lot about you," she started, her voice firm but not unkind. "Good things, I hope," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She chuckled, a sound that carried both warmth and a hint of challenge. "Depends on who you ask. Sit down, let's see if you pass the test." The afternoon unfolded with conversations that swung from blunt to deeply personal. Mary didn't hold back, asking about my intentions with her son, my thoughts on family, and my ambitions. It was like a verbal sparring match, but beneath her tough exterior, I saw glimpses of the love she had for her family. "Jack's been through a lot, the kids too. They need stability, not just another person passing through," Mary said, locking eyes with me. "I'm not here for a temporary gig, Mary. I care about them, about Jack." "I'm in this," I responded, my voice carrying a conviction I felt deep in my bones. She studied me for a moment longer, then nodded as if I passed some unspoken test. "Good, they could use someone like you. Just remember, kids and Jack come first." "Always." "Always," I echoed, understanding the weight of her words. As months turned into a year, my bond with Jack's family deepened. Emma and Alex, each in their own way, started to let me in. We had our moments, disagreements, misunderstandings, the usual family dynamics. But underneath it all was a growing sense of belonging. Jack's proposal came on a quiet evening after a day filled with laughter and music. It was simple, no grand gestures, just him and me and a question that promised a new chapter. "Sarah, I've seen you with the kids, with my mom, with me. You've become a part of us, a part we didn't even know was missing. Marry me, let's make this official," he said. I looked at him, at the man who had become my unexpected harmony, and without a moment's hesitation I said yes. The wedding was small, an intimate affair with those who mattered most. Mary, despite her tough exterior, shed a few tears, whispering, "Take care of them, Sarah. Your family now." And as I looked around at my new family, Jack, Emma, Alex, and Mary, I realized I wasn't just stepping into their lives. We were creating a new melody together, one that had its dissonances but was uniquely beautiful in its complexity. Life with Jack and the kids had settled into a sort of comfortable routine filled with school runs, music lessons, and family dinners. But as life tends to do, it threw us a curveball that changed everything. Mary's health took a nosedive, leaving her paralyzed and in need of constant care. Jack decided the best thing was to move her into our home. It made sense, but I don't think any of us were truly prepared for the impact it would have. From the get-go, the weight of caring for Mary fell heavily on my shoulders. Jack was caught up with work and the kids. Well, they were still kids. I didn't mind at first. Mary was family, after all, but as time went on, the strain began to show. One particularly tough day, after a grueling session of trying to get Mary comfortable and dealing with a mountain of household chores, I sat down at the kitchen table feeling utterly defeated. Mary had been particularly difficult, refusing to eat or take her medication. And Jack had been no help, locked away in his office. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear Jack come in. He stood there, watching me, an unreadable expression on his face. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, his voice void of the warmth it once held. I braced myself, knowing this conversation wouldn't be good. "What's up?" "It's about my mom and you. You seem off lately, not handling things as well as you used to," he said. I stared at him incredulously. "Off? Jack, I'm doing everything I can. I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm trying to be there for your mom, for the kids, for you, and it's never enough." He took a step back as if my words were physical blows. "I know you're trying, but it's not just about effort, Sarah. It's about results, and right now we're not seeing them." His words were like a slap in the face. Results. As if I was just another employee failing to meet my targets, not his wife struggling to keep our family together. Years rolled by, each one more challenging than the last. Mary's condition didn't improve, and my relationship with Jack and the kids, especially as they grew into adults, became more strained. The once vibrant connection I shared with Emma and Alex, built on music and mutual respect, faded into polite indifference. Then Mary passed away. It was a difficult time for all of us, a period marked by grief and reflection. I thought naively that maybe this would bring us closer, that shared sorrow would mend the cracks in our family. But I was wrong. After the funeral, things took a turn for the worse. Jack's demeanor changed overnight. The man who once looked at me with love and gratitude now regarded me with disdain. "You're just not the same anymore, Sarah," Jack snapped one evening, his words laced with bitterness. "You've let yourself go. You're old. You're ugly. I'm tired of you." I stood there shocked, his harsh words feeling like a physical blow, leaving me speechless and hurt. "Jack, how can you say that after everything?" But he cut me off. "Everything? You mean taking care of my kids and my mother? That was your job, Sarah. I tolerated you because you did the chores, nothing more." His words were like a knife, twisting deeper with each syllable. And the kids, now adults, weren't any better. Emma, once my closest ally, turned cold. "You really have no one but us, and you're pushing even us away. You're just a lonely, useless woman," she said, her voice void of the warmth it once held. Alex was no kinder, seizing every opportunity to belittle me. "You should be grateful we even let you stay here," he sneered whenever he passed me in the hall. I couldn't believe these were the same people I had loved and cared for, had considered my family. The transformation was stark. Their contempt for me a constant reminder of how much had changed. It wasn't just the emotional toll. My body began to betray me too. My legs, once strong and sure, now ached with a pain that made every step a chore. The doctor's words were clinical, detached, but they hit hard. "It's chronic," he said, scribbling something on his pad. "You'll need to manage it, adjust your activities." Adjust my activities, as if my life wasn't already a series of adjustments, concessions to a family that saw me as nothing more than a burden. One day, as I struggled to stand after a long bout of cleaning, Jack walked in, his eyes scanning the room, always looking for something to criticize. "What's wrong with you now?" he asked, his voice dripping with impatience. I tried to steady myself, to push past the pain. "My legs," I started. "They've been really bad today." The doctor said. He cut me off with a wave of his hand, a dismissive gesture that felt like a slap. "Always something with you, isn't it? Can't even rely on you to do the basic chores around here without making a big deal out of it." Teaching at the private school, my passion and my escape became impossible. Jack's reaction to my diagnosis was as cold as ice. "So what? You're just going to sit around all day now?" "Great, and another mouth to feed without any use," he sneered. The day I told him about my condition, his words cut deeper than the sharp pain in my legs. I wanted to scream, to tell him how much he was hurting me, but I knew it would only make things worse. So I bit back the pain and the tears, trying to find some way to navigate this new reality. Living in Jack's house became a daily reminder of my dependence. I was reduced to limping around, trying to keep the house in order, cooking meals that were often met with criticism or indifference. The pain was constant, a sharp reminder of my predicament, but I pushed through, terrified of what would happen if I stopped. Jack and the kids lived as if nothing had changed, as if my struggles were just a minor inconvenience to their lives. The inheritance from Mary's passing seemed to ignite a spending spree. New gadgets, clothes, jewelry, all flaunted in front of me as if to underscore my exclusion from their lives. "You should be grateful we're keeping you around," Jack would say, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "Without us, you'd be on the street. Remember that." Emma and Alex took their cues from their father, treating me more like an unwanted servant than a stepmother. "Don't forget to wash my new jeans." Sarah: "Wouldn't want them ruined like you ruin everything else." Emma would toss over her shoulder, her words sharp as knives. "Make sure dinner's on time tonight. We've got places to be, and we can't wait around for you to limp around the kitchen." Alex would say, his disdain barely veiled. I harbored fantasies of leaving, of finding some way to reclaim my independence and dignity. But the reality was harsh. With no income, no savings, and a body that betrayed me at every turn, I was stuck. My dreams of escape seemed just that, dreams distant and unattainable. In the midst of my lowest point, feeling trapped and useless, I stumbled upon something that sparked a flicker of hope in me. It was during one of those long, sleepless nights, scrolling aimlessly through the internet on my old, barely functioning laptop. I found a forum for vocal teachers giving online lessons. The idea struck me like a lightning bolt. The next day, with the house empty and my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear, I set up a makeshift studio in the corner of my room. I wasn't sure if anyone would be interested, but I had to try. I recorded a simple introduction video, my voice shaky but determined, and posted it online. To my astonishment, inquiries started coming in. People were interested in learning from me despite my physical limitations. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt valued for my skills and knowledge. Jack and the kids noticed the change in me, but didn't know the cause. "What's got into you?" Jack asked one evening, his tone suspicious, as he caught me humming while preparing dinner. "Just feeling a bit better today," I replied, keeping my eyes on the task at hand, hiding the fear that he would disapprove or, worse, try to stop me. He snorted, dismissing my response. "Well, don't get too happy. You've still got your doobies around here," he said. I nodded, my heart sinking, but I didn't let his words deter me. The hours I spent teaching online became my sanctuary, a place where I could be myself, share my love for music, and forget, even if just for a little while, the pain and humiliation I endured daily. I invested the little money I made from teaching into better equipment, slowly but surely building my online presence. The physical pain was still there, a constant reminder of my limitations. But when I was teaching, it receded into the background, overshadowed by the joy of connecting with my students. As the months went by, I took a moment to look at the numbers, something I had been avoiding, afraid to jinx it. But there it was, clear as day on my screen. I was making money, real money, more than I ever made teaching at the private school, more than I ever thought possible from the confines of this oppressive house, and shockingly, more than Jack made with his so-called prestigious job. I remember sitting there, staring at the figures, a mix of disbelief and triumph washing over me. For so long I had felt like a burden, a financial leech in Jack's eyes. But here I was, earning my own way and not just scraping by, but actually doing better than him. For a moment, I let myself bask in the success, allowing the numbers to speak for themselves. I was doing this. I was making it happen despite everything that had been thrown my way. It was a silent victory, one I couldn't share with anyone in the house, but it was mine all the same. The betrayal that came was not just a single moment of cruelty, but a culmination of years of disregard and contempt, crystallized into one devastating dinner conversation. There we were, sitting around the table, me serving them as I always did when Jack decided to drop his bombshell with a smirk that I had come to love. I got promoted at work, he started, and for a brief, foolish moment, I thought maybe this was good news, something positive for once. But then he continued. So I bought a new house, a better one fitting for my status. That's when the air around me grew cold. My hand stilled, the plate I was holding nearly slipping from my grasp. Before I could even muster a congratulations, he landed his cruel blow. And I'll be moving there with the kids. Not you. You're not coming. His words were like a slap, but the mocking laugh that followed was a knife to the heart. I mean, come on, Sarah. Did you really think you fit in? An old limp like you. No, it's time I found someone younger, more suitable. The laughter that erupted from Emma cut even deeper. Yeah, and guess what? This old house sold. Enjoy the streets, Sarah. I stood there frozen as he slid the divorce papers across the table. The audacity, the sheer coldness of it all was staggering. Yet as I looked at those papers, something within me refused to break. I didn't cry, didn't plead. I simply signed them, each stroke of my name a silent vow to myself. When morning came, I was ready. Jack and the kids watched with a mix of surprise and that familiar contempt as I hauled my bags to the door. Their parting words were meant to wound, to kick me when I was down. Hope you like the Flophouses, Sarah, Jack sneered, a cruel smile playing on his lips. But I walked out of that house with my head held high, the weight of their insults falling away with each step I took. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of freedom, a clarity that had been missing from my life. Settling into my new rented apartment was like breathing fresh air for the first time in years. It was my space, my sanctuary, where I could dive into my online vocal teaching without looking over my shoulder. Hearing from friends, I found out that Jack had moved into that fancy new house with the kids, true to form. Instead of being smart with the money from the old house, they blew it on all sorts of nonsense. Typical. That's when I decided to play my hand. Over the years, I'd saved voicemails and recorded moments of their verbal lashings, a dark library of the abuse I suffered. Without a second thought, I sent them off to Jack's boss. It felt like releasing doves into a storm, but these birds carried grenades. The call I got from Jack after was music to my ears, but not the kind I usually taught. Sarah, what have you done? He screamed into the phone, his voice a mix of rage and panic. They're demoting me, cutting my salary. How could you? In the background, I could hear Emma and Alex, their voices shrill, hurling insults my way. But their words felt distant, inconsequential. Oh, Jack, I said, a laugh bubbling up. Looks like you're the one who might end up without a roof over your head. Meanwhile, I'm here thinking about buying my own place. How the tables have turned. The silence that followed was sweet, filled with their disbelief and shock. Then Jack, ever the beggar now, started his plea. Sarah, please, you have to help us. We could lose the house, the kids. Think about the kids. We'll take you back. I swear we'll do anything. Hearing them grovel, offering to take me back as if they were doing me a favor, was the cherry on top. Take me back to be your maid again? No thanks. I've got better things to do. Hanging up the phone, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a final closure to a chapter of my life that had brought me nothing but pain. They were desperate, flailing in the mess they'd made, and for once I wasn't there to clean it up. Through the grapevine, friends let slip that Jack, along with Emma and Alex, had been evicted. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage, they said. Now they were crammed into some small apartment, the kids juggling jobs to make ends meet. The twist of fate wasn't lost on me. After everything they put me through, there was a bitter taste of justice in the air. Can you believe it? I mused aloud during a call with one of my closest friends from the teaching community, Lena. Jack and the kids, scrambling to keep a roof over their heads after all that talk about me ending up in a flophouse. Lena's laugh crackled through the phone. Karma's a real kicker, ain't it? You, on the other hand, are living proof that what goes around comes around. You're doing amazing, Sarah. Then came the opportunity of a lifetime. A well-known music school reached out, having heard of my teaching success. They offered me a position, not just as a teacher, but as a coordinator for their online program. It was more than a job, it was recognition. A chance to influence and inspire on a scale I had never imagined. As I sat down to sign the contract, a wave of gratitude washed over me. To think, not so long ago, I was convinced my life had crumbled beyond repair, and now here I was, signing a contract that was not just a job offer, but a symbol of my journey from darkness into light. The celebration that night was simple, just me and a few close friends I had made along the way, including Lena, who had quickly become a pillar of support and friendship. As we raised our glasses in a toast, Lena leaned over and whispered, "You're an inspiration, Sarah. You've turned your life into a symphony of success." Her words struck a chord, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion. "Thank you, Lena. It's been quite the journey. But you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. The hardships, the pain, it all led me here to this moment, to a life I can be proud of." As the night wore on, filled with music and laughter, I realized that this was more than just a new chapter. It was a whole new book, a story of triumph over adversity, of finding harmony in the chaos.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." "Absolutely right." His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. but that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.